Hi there, it's Dr. Thomas Smithyman. I'm a clinical psychologist. I specialize in social anxiety. Thanks for coming to my channel. I'm going to be putting up all these videos on kind of just about social anxiety, different types, what you can do to treat it. So thanks for coming by. If you're interested in knowing more about me or getting more information on all this stuff, you can go to my website, which is myname.com, so thomassmithyman.com. And yeah, it's one of there's 5 dogs in the house right now, so you may well hear dog noises at various times. So yeah, if you like this, you can subscribe. I'm putting out videos once a week, Fridays at around 2 o'clock Eastern time. Made sense to me because there's a lot of, sort of the lead up to all the social stuff. So for today, I wanted to talk about one of the fundamental things for treating social anxiety, which is getting out of your own head. I'm going to talk about one piece of this. It's a part of one of the big kind of chunks of treatment. But I'm going to talk about one piece of it that's really important, which is getting out of your head in the lead up to any kind of social event. So not being focused up internally. So my kind of the initial thought for this was if you think about, I don't know, you might have the experience of you kind of maybe bump into somebody, or without knowing it, you enter a social setting. You weren't preparing, you weren't thinking about it, but all of a sudden the social situation is happening and you talk and you can think of stuff and it goes okay. In contrast, for a lot of people with social anxiety, if you know that situation is coming up, then you'll be a lot more anxious when it actually comes. You'll be more anxious in the lead up, and you'll be more anxious while in the interaction, compared to if it had just happened unexpectedly on the spot. So for a lot of people, maybe they'd be some anxiety, like a 4 out of 10. But from just happening into a conversation. But if they know that it's coming up and they're thinking about it, okay, I know this party's happening tonight, or I know that I'm going to bump into this person in this situation. And when they know it's coming, maybe they're up at a 7, it goes up a lot. So there's a question of why does that happen? Why would knowing about it in advance make you more anxious? And the reason why is because the things that we're doing in that time, we know that they increase anxiety. It's going to illustrate one of the main themes in treatment. Basically, one of the core ideas of at least my model of social anxiety, which is that our attempts to self-protect, so to protect ourselves from social danger, the things we do that we think are going to help us, that are going to prevent things from going wrong, those are, counterintuitively, those are actually the things that make us anxious. So they are the main cause of problems. So that's one of the core themes. So that applies for this situation. So consider what it is that you do, or that most people do, when they know that an event is coming up. Well, they go up into the head and they try to play out the scenario. They try to imagine and predict what's going to happen. This is an attempt to help. What they're trying to do is they're trying to imagine, okay, let me picture what could go wrong. So let me imagine this playing out. And then they tend to predict, oh, this might go wrong, or this might go wrong. And Then the next part is, well, I don't want it to go wrong. They're imagining it going wrong and they're starting to get anxious. They think, well, I don't want it to go wrong. And so they then try to use sort of the problem solving skills to, well, what I could do this maybe, what if I can't think of anything to say? And they picture themselves standing there with nothing to say and everyone looking at them, start to feel anxious just imagining that, because our emotional brain doesn't differentiate between real and imagined very well. So they're imagining it going badly and having nothing to say. Anxiety goes up, and then it goes, well, I've got to figure this out. So they start trying to solve it. Well, I guess I could say this, or maybe I can think of this in advance, or maybe they solve that one. But what if instead this goes wrong? What if I fumble something, or what if what I say is like not good enough, or And there's this pattern of imagining things going wrong, anxiety creeping up, trying to problem solve it, feeling a little bit better, but then maybe not really answering it, or not thinking of enough solutions for all the potential problems. And there's a good chance in the lead up to a social event, this is happening again and again and again and again for that whole time. And as a result, you get really anxious. You just spent all this time in your head imagining all these things that could go wrong, and probably not having too great of a solution at the end of it all. The next piece of this, the next question to ask is, does it work? So you made yourself anxious. I've already given you a hint that it doesn't, but consider this, right? You've done all this work trying to protect yourself from things going wrong, thinking, well, if I can plan it out, if I can think of what to say, if I can think of what to do, if I can think of solutions to all these imagined scenarios, then I'll be safe. But if you actually ask yourself, does it work? The results are probably not going to be very good. So how often have you really accurately predicted what will go wrong, what happens? So how often when you're imagining things that go wrong, do all of those things happen? I mean, never, right? How often when you imagine things going wrong, do any of them happen? Like, what percentage of your anxious predictions are accurate? Probably a very, very small percentage. And then part two of that, how good are the solutions you think of? Like, how often have you done a worry session of where you imagine things happening and try to think of solutions? How often do you come up with these great solutions that you then put into practice and you think, oh man, I'm so glad I thought of that in advance? Like, really, how often? I'm guessing not very often. I tend to see that being generally not very useful. There are some times when people, well, I did imagine this would happen and I thought of what to do and then it happened and I did it. Then the question is, well, did you need to think of that in advance? Or is that a problem you could have solved just in the moment? And most of the time you could solve it in the moment. I think it's very, very rare that doing a worry session up in your head before a social event really leads to you going better or solving something. In fact, what we know just from research is it's probably going to make you do worse. Certainly not better. Good chance you will at least be far less comfortable, because we know the more time you spend up in your head worrying, bringing up all these negative images, the more and more anxious you get in the moment. But also, when you finally go to that party or you finally do talk to that person, you've just ramped up your anxiety. So this is really, really common. If you are an analytical person, if you tend to solve things in your head, I bet you've been doing it a long, long time, since you're a kid. And why wouldn't you sort of automatically assume, well, I'll solve this problem in my head? You do, it's a habit, of course you do. So it's very common, but it doesn't work. It's a real driver of social anxiety. if you can cut this one piece out, there's some really recent research that says if you can really cut out this one piece, you can make a huge impact on social anxiety overall. So I kind of want to work on doing this. So there was one of my clients in particular that I was thinking of around this stuff. He'd been working with me for quite a while and doing pretty great. And he'd been working on many of the components of how you sort of get out of your head, how you learn to kind of control your attention. He'd done a lot of work on building that muscle through sort of various techniques we'd worked on. But he realized that he was doing a lot of this worrying before he entered social situations. So this pre-worrying. He realized he was doing a lot of that, and it was making him very, very anxious when he entered social situations, particularly if he had dates. So what we tried was we actually sort of this technique of getting him out of his head. So finding things that would get his concentration where he could, instead of trying to solve problems up here, instead take his attention and focus on something that matters to him. And one of the easiest ways to do that, we had him schedule things for himself that he liked and he cared about immediately before he had a social event or a date. And what ends up happening is he didn't think about it. When the thoughts came to mind, he would just refocus back on what was happening right in front of him. And then he went straight from social event into his date or his dating opportunities. And yeah, he told me this made him far less anxious. He had a much more comfortable social time. So some things to think about, and it is highlighting some of the main chunks of my kind of model of treating social anxiety, because attention is very important, and you really do want to learn how to control it, and you want to realize what it is doing for you and not doing for you. In general, we want you out of your head. The less you're in your head, the more you're focused on the things that actually matter to you, the less anxious you get, and the more smoothly social interactions tend to go. I can talk a lot more about that, and I will in the future. So yeah, thanks for watching. Try to put this into action. ThomasSmithyman.com is my webpage. Go there for more info or to get on a mailing list to get stuff from me. Thanks for watching. I hope it helps you. If there's anything that you want me to talk about, any questions you have, leave it in the comments, because I guess I'm happy to answer those, and the more specific it is for you guys, then kind of the more interesting it will be. Because I'm just thinking of things from therapy sessions that I thought, this would be useful. So yeah, please leave that stuff for me. Okay, thanks a lot. See ya.